Prepare yourself for tales that will grip your heart and chill your spine. Nimisha stood before the cracked mirror, her reflection a disarray of tangled hair and wild eyes that mirrored her spiraling thoughts. Panic coursed through her veins, rendering her fingers clumsy as she struggled to tie back her hair, the frantic motion betraying the storm of fear raging within her. She had never regretted her late-night study sessions as profoundly as she did that dark evening. A sense of being hunted gnawed at her, a primal instinct that whispered insistently, someone was watching, someone was waiting. The haunting began long ago, woven into the very fabric of the prestigious boarding school where Nimisha and her friend Manisha had sought refuge. They had been inseparable since their days in Class A, but the truth of their sanctuary was steeped in a sinister legacy. 5 years prior, a young girl, a beacon of promise, met her tragic end on the cursed 5th floor of the girls' hostel. No one could fathom the circumstances surrounding her death. Teachers and parents dismissed the notion of mental strain or academic burden. She seemed to have been a bright light snuffed out too soon. At first, whispers of murder echoed through the halls. But as time passed, the police found nothing, no suspects, no leads, only silence. The case faded into obscurity. Yet the legend of the girl's ghost began to weave itself into the lives of the students. Tales of her spirit roaming the desolate 5th floor spread like wildfire, and the school, in a desperate bid for safety, sealed off that haunted level, opening it only once a week for the reluctant sweep of a broom. Years passed, and Nimisha and Manisha found themselves sharing a room in that very hostel, their lives dictated by rigid routines. Nimisha immersed herself in books, often losing track of time until the early hours of the morning, when the world outside was steeped in an unsettling stillness. She would rouse Manisha at the crack of dawn, the sun's first rays barely piercing the oppressive darkness. Manisha, her thick glasses perched precariously on her nose, would take the reins of study, determined to carve out a future despite the specters of the past. But that night, as the clock ticked ominously towards the witching hour, the air grew thick with something other than the faint scent of aged books. Nimisha felt it, a presence lurking, a sinister breath on the nape of her neck. Her heart raced, each beat echoing the tales spun around the 5th floor. The shadows coiled and twisted as if alive, waiting to ensnare her in their deadly embrace. She could hear whispers, soft and mournful, rising from the depths of her mind, a gentle reminder of the girl who had once walked the same halls, her laughter now a distant memory drowned in the cold void of despair. The walls, once a sanctuary, felt like a prison, as if they were closing in, suffocating her with the weight of secrets too grave to bear. Nimisha's breath quickened, her pulse racing, a cacophony of dread swelling within her. She turned, half expecting to find someone standing behind her, but the room lay shrouded in darkness, every corner harboring shadows that seemed to breathe with malicious intent. The stories she had dismissed as mere folklore now clawed at her sanity, dragging her deeper into a nightmarish reality. And then, the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoed from the hall, a slow, deliberate tread that sent icy tendrils of fear spiraling down her spine. Nimisha's heart seized as she stood frozen, the hair on her arms standing at attention. Who or what was out there? The stories had come alive, and she was no longer just a witness. She was a player in a dark game that had been set in motion long before her arrival. As the footsteps grew closer, the air thickened with an unnameable terror. Nimisha's mind raced, caught in a web of fear and disbelief. The legend of the girl was no longer a distant tale. It was now a chilling reality that threatened to engulf her whole. The night stretched on, a canvas painted with dread, as she braced herself for the horror that awaited just beyond the threshold of her sanctuary, a horror that had been waiting for her all along. The black thread, a talisman gifted by her mother, hung like a shadow around Nimisha's wrist, a silent guardian amidst the encroaching darkness. While the other students dismissed the tales of the haunted 5th floor as mere folklore, an unspoken agreement lingered in the air. They would never venture there, not even in jest. Yet on that fateful night of December 10th, destiny pulled the strings in a way that would shatter their disbelief. It was 12:30 a.m., the hour when the world outside faded into an inky abyss. And Nimisha, consumed by her studies, found herself alone in the dimly lit room. The silence was palpable, the kind that pressed against her ears like a heavy fog. Manisha lay asleep on the other side, blissfully unaware of the darkness lurking beyond their walls. As Nimisha's throat tightened with an inexplicable dryness, she decided to seek solace in a steaming cup of coffee. The hall greeted her with an eerie stillness, a void where laughter and chatter had once thrived. The coffee machine sputtered to life, its mechanical hum the only sound piercing the silence. But as soon as the machine whirred to a stop, the quiet returned, almost suffocating in its intensity. As she turned, clutching the steaming mug, a sudden jolt of terror coursed through her. Manisha stood mere inches away, her figure outlined against the darkness. Nimisha's heart raced. The absence of her friend's glasses made her appear foreign, unsettling, but it was the missing black thread around Manisha's wrist that sent a shiver down Nimisha's spine. "What are you doing up?" Nimisha managed to stammer, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why don't we go to the 5th floor balcony?" Manisha's voice was soft, almost ethereal, sending a chill through Nimisha's veins. Her eyes widened in shock, a smile creeping onto her lips, a mix of excitement and fear. Before she could voice her hesitations, Manisha seized her hand, pulling her toward the staircase. As they ascended, only the soft shuffle of Nimisha's slippers broke the stillness. The absence of Manisha's familiar footfalls felt ominous. The air grew thick with an inexplicable tension. To their surprise, the door to the 5th floor stood ajar, an invitation to the unknown. Stepping inside felt like crossing a threshold into a realm untouched by time. They wandered into a room steeped in shadows, a room that whispered of sorrow and loss. It was the very chamber where the girl had breathed her last 5 years prior, her spirit rumored to linger amidst the peeling wallpaper and dust-laden memories. The chill of the night wrapped around them, the wind howling through the cracked windows as if trying to warn them away. Nimisha's gaze was drawn to the wall, where someone had scratched 10th December into the surface with desperate nails, haunting reminder of a life cut short. A sense of foreboding settled over them as they stepped onto the balcony, peering down into the depths below. The world seemed to hold its breath, the fog swirling like ghostly tendrils. Manisha had become a wraith, drifting silently, her demeanor unsettlingly tranquil. Nimisha shivered, the cold creeping into her bones, and urged we should go back downstairs. But her words fell into the void, unheard and unacknowledged. Manisha remained transfixed, her eyes scanning the darkness as if searching for something just beyond reach. The air thickened with dread, a palpable sense of being watched. Nimisha's heart raced as she felt an unseen presence enveloping them, the night closing in with suffocating intensity. A cold gust of wind swept through the balcony, and in that breath of chilling air, a whisper floated past, echoing the name of the girl lost to time, a solemn reminder that some spirits never truly leave. As Nimisha reached for Manisha, desperate to break the spell that bound them, she felt an icy grip at her wrist, a warning or perhaps a beckoning. The night stretched on, suspended in a moment of terror. As they stood at the precipice of the unknown, the shadows clawing at their sanity, and the haunting legacy of the 5th floor reached out to claim them. Nimisha's voice trembled as she called out to Manisha again, her heart pounding like a frantic drum in her chest. For the first time, Manisha met her gaze, and an icy dread washed over Nimisha. The familiar warmth in Manisha's eyes had vanished, replaced by an unsettling alabaster hue that sent chills spiraling down her spine. "Jump," Manisha uttered, her voice a haunting whisper that echoed in the stillness of the night. Confusion gripped Nimisha, her mind racing. Why would her friend ask her to leap into the abyss below? A wave of dread washed over her, draining the color from her cheeks. With every repetition of the word, "Jump, jump," Manisha's voice grew heavier, laden with an insidious weight that wrapped around Nimisha's senses like a suffocating shroud. Nimisha felt her limbs turn to stone, frozen in place as if caught in a trance. The very air thickened with a palpable darkness, and a gnawing terror crept into her mind. If she did not comply, would Manisha cast her down into the swirling void? Panic surged within her, but her body betrayed her, entranced by the eerie command echoing in her ears. As her eyelids began to flutter shut, a strange calm enveloped her. With a shiver, she let her hair cascade down, strands flowing like dark water in the night air. She felt herself teetering on the edge of surrender, the pull of Manisha's spell growing stronger. threatening to draw her into the depths of an unknown fate. But then, a sudden crash erupted from the floor below, an explosion of sound that shattered the oppressive silence. Nimisha jolted back to reality, her instincts kicking in as adrenaline surged through her veins. In a moment of sheer desperation, she shoved Manisha away and bolted toward the staircase, her heart racing wildly. Behind her, a terrifying roar reverberated through the air, a guttural sound that clawed at her very soul. But she dared not look back. Every fiber of her being screamed to escape. She raced down the stairs, her slippers slapping against the cold floor, the darkness swallowing her whole. Bursting into her room, she slammed the door shut with a force that rattled the frame. Gasping for breath, she turned to face the bed, her heart plummeting into an abyss of horror. There lay Manisha, serene and untouched, peacefully sleeping in the very position where Nimisha had left her. The sight sent fresh terror surging through Nimisha's veins, her pulse racing as disbelief clawed at her mind. "Manisha!" she cried, shaking her friend awake, the urgency ringing in her voice. When Manisha stirred, rubbing her eyes, Nimisha was met with an innocent gaze that bore no trace of the malevolence from moments before. But the pallor of Nimisha's face and the frantic gleam in her eyes spoke of the horrors she had just witnessed. As Manisha blinked into the dim light, confusion clouded her features. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice laced with sleep. In that moment, Nimisha felt an overwhelming wave of relief mixed with terror. She drew Manisha into a tight embrace, the warmth of her friend grounding her amidst the chaos. But even as she held on, the memory of that ghostly encounter clawed at her mind, whispering that the night was far from over, and the darkness still lurked just beyond the veil of reality. Nimisha held Manisha close, but the words that danced on the tip of her tongue remained trapped in the suffocating silence. She could not bear to relive the terror of that night, the haunting whispers and the chilling command that still echoed in her mind. It was a burden too heavy to share. And so she wrapped herself in a cocoon of denial, allowing the darkness to swallow her instead. That night, she stood before the bathroom mirror, splashing cold water on her face, the unfamiliar reflection staring back at her, a girl haunted by shadows. She tied her hair back with trembling fingers, a desperate attempt to regain control over her life. As sleep claimed her, the events of that fateful night lingered like a specter, refusing to fade into the recesses of her mind. Manisha, on the other hand, was left in a haze of confusion. The air between them thickened with unspoken words, an invisible chasm forming where camaraderie once thrived. Each evening, as she settled down to study, the weight of an unseen gaze bore down on her. Nimisha would sit quietly in the corner, her presence both comforting and unsettling, as if she were caught in a trance of her own making. Disturbed by the change in their dynamic, Manisha finally confronted her friend, her voice trembling with concern. "Nimisha, what happened that night? Please talk to me." The dam within Nimisha began to break as she recounted the harrowing details, her voice trembling as she spoke of the white eyes and the chilling command. As she recited the story, the weight of anxiety lifted slightly, yet fear still clung to her words, wrapping around them like creeping vines. Manisha listened in rapt silence, her heart racing as the pieces fell into place. She knew that a girl had died on December 10th, a truth buried beneath layers of denial and whispers. The realization struck her like a thunderclap. Every rumor, every chilling tale they had dismissed, suddenly felt all too real. The ghost of the girl had not only been a figment of their imaginations, but a lingering presence, entwined with their fate. From that day forward, the topic of the fifth floor was a silent pact between them, an unspoken agreement to keep the darkness at bay. They avoided the subject like a cursed relic, yet the chilling memory of their encounter haunted their thoughts, a ghost that refused to be exorcised. In the quiet corners of their minds, the heartbeat of fear continued to thrum, a reminder that some stories are not mere tales, but echoes of reality that linger long after the light fades. As the screen faded to black, the soft strains of music wrapped around the narrative, a haunting melody that resonated with the chilling tale they had shared. If you found yourself drawn into this world of shadows, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. SFK Tales, story where the darkness always beckons for more.